Just give us one moment while we get our cameras set up here. All right, so I am on. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Cooking Connected. If this is your first time with us, welcome. We're excited to have you here. My name is Sajwa, and joining me here today is Jordan.
Hi, everyone.
All right, so Jordan and I are both program coordinators with Cooking Matters Minnesota, and that's in collaboration with the University of Minnesota. Oh, my camera, excuse me.
Sorry, everyone, technical difficulties.
Where's my camera, you guys?
You're back.
Am I back? Oh, okay, well, I can't see myself, but as I was saying, Cooking Matters Minnesota is in collaboration with the University of Minnesota. And usually a normal Cooking Matters class is a 6-week nutrition-based cooking class. We meet once a week for about 2 hours. And in that time, we'll go through a chef demonstration. We will also have a nutrition educator to teach us some really cool nutrition to go along with that. And it's overall just a lot of fun. So with today's episode of Cooking Connected, we plan on doing the same thing. Jordan's gonna be our chef today, and I'll be our nutrition educator. So we're gonna have a lot of fun. But with every episode, we do wanna ask if you guys would be willing to take our survey for us. So I have a program code for you. Let me make sure that's in view. And the program code for today's episode of Cooking Connected is gonna be E099806. So again, that's our program code for this week's episode. And if you guys have a moment, please take that survey for us. It helps us continue to do this kind of work, improve on our videos and improve on our content. So we do appreciate that feedback. And with that, I'm gonna pass it along to Jordan.
Awesome, thank you, Sajwa. All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of Cooking Connected. This week, we're gonna be making a lighter baked macaroni and cheese. So I don't know about you, but macaroni and cheese is kind of my comfort food. So I'm really excited for today's recipe. We'd like to thank the creator of this recipe at skinnytaste.com. And I believe Sajwa may have the name for that. So we will get the name of the author of this recipe at the end here. So if you would like to find the recipe, just go ahead and look in the description box of our video. And I believe it should also be in the live chat. So check out that. Yeah.
Gina, actually.
Gina. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Gina, for this recipe. It looks amazing and we're excited to start. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. As always, the first thing that we do when we're starting a recipe up is wash our hands. So we're going to be washing our hands for 20 seconds, getting all those surfaces. We're washing with hot soapy water. We can sing the ABCs or the happy birthday twice if we're working with the kiddos today in the kitchen. So whoever is cooking with us, so we need to be washing our hands. The second thing we're going to be doing is setting up our mise en place. So we've been over this quite a few times in our videos, but mise en place is, putting everything in its place. We like to joke at Cooking Matters that it's putting your mess in place. So as you can see here in my chef's view, I have all the ingredients laid out that I will need for today's recipe. I do also have my produce that we are using today has already been rinsed. Another important step, if you're ever working with cans of certain ingredients, canned green beans, canned corn, whatever it is, make sure you're rinsing the tops of your cans as well. We have no canned ingredients today, so our mise en place is ready to go. So it looks like we are ready to get started. This is a new recipe for me, so I always like to read through the recipe. That's the first thing I always like to do when I'm working with a new recipe. Well, our first step for today is we're going to go ahead and cook the pasta according to package directions. So for time's sake, I have already cooked our pasta today. I did have this I found an awesome product. So I am working with the chickpea pasta. You will notice all of the alphabet in there. So we are going to be working with an alphabet pasta today, an alphabet chickpea pasta. So I have cooked that to the packaged ingredients. The chickpea pasta, you can also work with the elbow macaroni. I was having a really hard time finding a whole grain elbow macaroni in my area. So I decided to go with chickpea. Chickpea or garbanzo beans. This is the product that I'm using today, but you can use a different type of chickpea pasta as well. It has a little bit more protein in it. So that's another plus for today. So we've cooked our pasta. The next step is the one that I always forget. Preheat your oven to 375. So go ahead and preheat your oven. And please don't forget that step. There's nothing worse than forgetting that step. So step 3, we're gonna have in a large skillet, we're gonna melt our butter. We're gonna add flour and we're gonna heat that over low heat, and we're gonna stir with a whisk. So what we're doing is creating a roux today. So I'm going to go ahead and change my view real quick so you guys can see what I'm doing. And Sajwa, if you want to let me know that everything is in view. Can you see what I'm doing?
Looks great, Jordan.
Awesome. All right, so let's go ahead and start. I'm going to go ahead and grab my butter real quick. And then we're also going to be working with milk. So I really like to keep some of these ingredients in the fridge for as long as possible. Just especially like our dairy, just keep that in the fridge until you're ready to work with them. So today I'm having the recipe. So I'm going to use 1 tablespoon of butter. Let's go ahead. I'm just going to go ahead and heat that. We're just heating this over a low heat. We do not want our butter to burn. So like I said, we are going to be creating a roux and creating a cheese sauce with that roux. And when you're creating a roux, you do have to whisk it quite a bit. So in a roux, it's typically butter or some type of fat with flour in there. So I'm going to add a little bit of flour as soon as my butter starts melting. And then we're going to be kind of whisking this pretty constantly for that. There we go. So since I am having this recipe, the actual recipe calls for 1/4 cup of flour. Since I'm having it, I only need 1/8 of a cup, which is only about 2 tablespoons. So I'm going to go ahead and throw 2 tablespoons of flour in there as soon as my butter is melting. Takes me a minute.
You know, with a recipe like this, you probably wouldn't want your kids standing over the stovetop trying to whisk, but they can definitely be involved with measuring things like perhaps the milk that you're using or your cheese or the flour. All of those things would be great opportunities to get the kids kind of involved. When they're involved with the recipe, they tend to be a little bit more engaged with eating it later on. So
absolutely. Okay, so our butter is melted. I'm going to go ahead and add some flour. And again, I'm just adding 2 tablespoons because I'm having this recipe.
Sure. Guys, that's another great thing that you can be doing with recipes. You know, sometimes if it makes a quantity for 8 and maybe your family is a bit smaller than that, you can always have the recipe or make a little bit more and save it for later as part of your meal prep. You know, that's a really great way to make sure that you're still having meals continuously through the week. Sometimes when I don't meal prep, I find myself coming down to the wire. I'm hungry, I'm stressed, and I just feel like I cannot bear the idea of cooking. So having, you know, some pre-prepped homemade mac and cheese would be a great way to avoid those feelings.
Absolutely. So a lot of times with your roux, this is what mine is looking like. Once we start adding some more, so my roux is kind of, you know, stuck together. You'll see in the pan here. Once we start adding some liquid, that will come apart. So next we're actually going to go ahead and we're going to add onion. So I have prepped ahead of time 2 tablespoons of some minced onion. When you are doing this recipe, it's important to have all of your ingredients ready because it kind of does move quick. So you're going to want to whisk pretty constantly and then, you know, add those ingredients when it says right away. Because sometimes your ingredients will burn. I've definitely done that before when I'm making cheese sauce. And there's nothing worse than burning it and having to start all over again. All right.
So I do have a question here from someone in the chat. They're asking, if you made the recipe ahead of time, how long would you keep it in the fridge?
Usually it kind of depends on the recipe, but for this, are you saying like Just this recipe in particular, I would keep this recipe up to a week. So everything, all the ingredients in here are already made or like cooked and ready to go. So if you're just making it ahead of time and then you want to throw it in the oven, you could probably keep it in there for a couple of days. If you're making it for later, if you're saying for leftovers, I would keep them up to a week.
Up to a week, okay.
All right. So we're going to go ahead and add a half a cup of vegetable broth next. So I just went ahead and cooked my onions a little bit. And now I'm finally adding in a little liquid. And that's going to get a little bit thicker from that flour. So I'm just, like I said, constantly stirring, and you'll see that it's starting to get a little bit thicker from that flour. Next, we're going to go ahead and add 1 cup of milk. So if you can multitask, you can pour your milk and whisk at the same time. Like I said, it's important with your roux to just keep whisking. At least try to. There we go. All right. And this is getting really thick really fast. So we're going to go ahead and add our milk in next. I just kind of work it in a little bit at a time. I'm actually using a skim milk today. So a lot of times, like you may see, for instance, like an Alfredo, you can use like a heavy whipping cream or a half and half. So a lot of times, like some of these recipes will call for that, but you can actually use a lighter ingredient. For instance, this skim milk. Keep it a little on the lighter side. It's a good way to save on calories.
Yeah, that's a great point. We did talk about that last week when we did our spaghetti squash and broccoli Alfredo. We did end up using our heavy whipping cream, but you know, Jordan mentioned then if you were to be using a milk or something a little bit lighter, it would just take a little bit more time to thicken up, but still it's possible and it's an excellent substitution. The amount of calories you save makes it worth it in the time department. So
absolutely. All right, so we're actually going to turn up the heat a little bit to a medium high heat, and we're going to let this boil and thicken. So this is going to let that skim milk reduce a little bit, and it does take a little more time for skim milk to reduce, but we're just going to let that reduce. So that'll just take a few minutes. This is a good time for some nutrition education.
Fabulous. I was ready to go. So for today's lesson, we're going to be talking about you know, ways that we can get kids to say yes to fruits and veggies, incorporate more fruits and veggies into our diet, into their diets, and help them feel a little bit more comfortable about, you know, eating fruits and veggies. So it does sound kind of ridiculous. Do kids even like fruits and veggies? And I find that a lot of it really just comes from fear of the unknown. It can be kind of nerve-wracking when you're seeing something new, like an eggplant or perhaps an avocado, and you've never tried that before. You're not really sure what that is. You haven't seen mom or dad eat that yet. It can be a little daunting. So we love to, you know, just make a couple recommendations here and now. Try offering fruits and vegetables at each meal in ways that are fun for kids. So an example of that would be letting your kids kind of play with their food. And I know that sounds crazy, but we can have fun by describing the shapes of the fruits and vegetables. We can make faces, perhaps on bagel spreads or bread. You know, you could use like peanut butter or cream cheese or something and have a little bit of fun making funny faces using vegetables. And you can also have kids pull in all of their senses when it comes to trying a new vegetable or fruit. So we're looking with our eyes at the color, at the texture, we're feeling that. We're smelling it to see what that smells like. Maybe if it has a crunch, we're listening for that. And then we're definitely going to go ahead and taste that. And that can be a great way to kind of ease children into trying a new vegetable or a fruit. One thing that we like to do with kids is talk about those colors. Nothing makes a recipe or a plate look more beautiful than all of the colors and textures that can be in there. And that's the wonderful thing about food and fruits and vegetables. there's a lot of variety in that. You know, I don't know if you've gone to the produce section in a while, but I mean, just seeing the beautiful colors of all the fruits and vegetables there, that's a great opportunity to have the kids point that out, get involved in the selection of the fruits and veggies that you're eating, perhaps making a wall chart where they can put a sticker by the colors that they're eating that day, and really encouraging the kids to eat a rainbow. It really makes eating fruits and vegetables a lot less of a chore and more fun, kind of like a game. So we love to incorporate that into cooking in the kitchen with kids. The next thing I would like to recommend is trying new cooking methods. So there are quite a few ways you can cook vegetables. We don't usually cook fruits, but you can prepare them in quite a few ways. And, you know, they can be roasted or baked, perhaps sauteed. You can cut them up really small and include them in a smoothie of some sort. You know, there are just different kind of things that you can do, but we love to recommend a light steam or a saute on the vegetables until they're just tender. I always hear that one of the things that kind of turns kids off from trying the new veggies is that they're mushy and, oh, they're gross, but you don't have to worry that with a nice light steam or saute. Avoid those overcooked vegetables. You can also try roasting. That'll bring out a lot of the natural sweetness in those vegetables. You know, and I like to talk about things like an apple crisp or, you know, an apple turnover that you can try to make from home, from scratch together. That's a wonderful opportunity for children to be involved with measuring, cutting the apples if they're of age, maybe peeling if that's necessary, selecting things in the grocery store. I mean, that whole recipe offers a lot of opportunity for children to get involved. And then I also would like to talk about ways that you can make it a game. So aside from having a chart, a color chart, you can also try to have like a taste test challenge, seasoning vegetables with different seasonings and seeing which ones we like, which ones we don't like, and then talking about why we do or don't like those things. And then at the end, voting for the one we like the most. That can be a fun dinner time activity that you can incorporate with the meal you've already prepped, so you're not having to do a lot of extra work on the side. Making up silly songs about a new fruit or vegetable, silly songs that could incorporate things that we saw, smelled, touched, or heard. And then have kids sing them, and that can be a lot of fun. And then finally, going on a scavenger hunt on their plate. So looking through their plate, you know, and just pointing out some of the peas or the corn or whatever that you have mixed in there. Jordan, I saw you holding up your pan there. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead there.
So I just wanted to let everyone know, as soon as this starts boiling, you're going to go ahead and remove your roux from the heat. And then you're going to slowly start adding in that cheddar cheese. So you may have noticed that I was just adding a little bit of cheese at a time. So about 1/4 a cup at a time is all you're going to want to add. And you're just going to continuously whisk that in. So I'll show you right now. I'm just going to add a little bit. You're adding about 8. I'm added about 4 ounces of cheddar cheese into this. I'm just going to add a little bit of Parmesan for taste. And then we're going to whisk it in. So it's important to remove it from the heat and then just a little bit of cheese at a time. So you can see, look at that beautiful cheese sauce.
Oh, gosh.
So we made a beautiful cheese sauce with that. Next, we're just going to go ahead and add in our cooked pasta, as well as about 2 cups of our spinach. You can add other you know, vegetables in here. For instance, like a chopped broccoli, nicely fine chopped broccoli would go really well in this. Some peas, if you're a fan of peas.
Yeah.
A lot of good vegetables that you can throw in here. So I'm just going to go ahead and quickly add in 2 cups of spinach, as well as the rest of my cooked pasta. And then we will start adding it to our pan.
So while Jordan does that, I'm just going to finish off a little bit of our nutrition education. You know, right now Jordan's adding that pasta, and as she mentioned earlier, she just couldn't find that elbow macaroni. No problem. She found the really cool ABC alphabet noodle option, and you know, that's a really great idea for getting kids involved in trying something like this. seeing a mac and cheese with some spinach in it might be like, whoa, what's going on here? But then we have the ABC pasta that makes it a little bit of more fun. It's another way we can engage at the dinner table together, kind of talking through the alphabet, talking about the way that that tastes and how yummy that cheese sauce is because it looks good. But, you know, that's just a really great quick idea for getting the kids involved, and, you know, having them really invested in the meals that you're preparing will make them more eager to try it.
So as you can see, I'm just making sure everything is really well coated in that cheese sauce. That beautiful cheese sauce. I lost an alphabet there. Lost an A or something. So we're gonna go ahead and we've got everything really well coated. Now we're gonna go ahead and put it in our pan because we are gonna bake this for a little while. So I'm just using a smaller pan today. Make sure that you add a little oil. So I'm gonna spray it. If you do not have spray, no problem. You could just use the regular, you know, liquid oil and just go ahead and wipe it on your pan.
And let the kids do that, you guys. I'm all about the kids today. Let them get their fingers dirty and help oil up that pan with you.
Absolutely. This pan is it's a little bit older, given to me by my grandmother, and it is so heavy. So I apologize. I'm making sure I'm getting all of that beautiful cheese sauce out of there. It's like the best part. That's something to think about though. Some of the pans that I have on hand, you can't use a metal whisk on. So just keep that in mind when you're making this recipe, because you are going to have to whisk the pan. So if you're using like Teflon, you don't want to scratch that Teflon in the bottom of the pan. So
great tip.
Yeah. And I'm just going to go ahead and kind of smooth this out a little bit. And we're going to actually add a little bit more Parmesan on top and some plain breadcrumbs. I just have some just regular plain breadcrumbs today. I'm gonna add a little bit on the top. There are whole wheat breadcrumbs available. Again, that's another product that I was having a lot of trouble finding lately. So, but they are available out there. Just adds a nice little crunch to the top. And then we're gonna add some Parmesan. I'm going to sprinkle just a little bit on the top. This is already covered in cheese, so we really don't need much more cheese.
Just enough to get that golden brown once we pop it in the oven, huh?
Absolutely. So we're going to cook this at 375 for about 15 to 20 minutes. So this is going to bake for 15 minutes, 15 to 20, and then we're actually going to broil it. So the broiling, we're just going to, that's just going to make sure that the crumbs on the top are nice and brown for us, a nice crust on the top. So that's what the broiling's for. You can skip that step if you want, but I would suggest it because it's awesome. So we're gonna bake this for, like I said, 375, 15 to 20 minutes. But I know you guys didn't want to wait around with me for 15 to 20 minutes, so maybe run ahead of time. So this is what it's gonna kind of look like at the end of our recipe. You'll notice it is browned at the top there. Just adds a nice little crust on top. And let's go ahead. Just dish some up. It smells amazing.
It looks so good, Jordan. Oh my goodness.
So we've got a beautiful kind of crunch on the top, and then some of our, you know, that spinach will wilt a little bit. So that is our mac and cheese for today.
Wow, what a lovely recipe. Like, thank you so much for doing this recipe for us, Jordan. Man, you guys are really lucky. I'm jealous that we're not having lunch together today, because I would love to try that out, but that's okay. I'll just do this recipe on my own. All right. So everybody, thank you so much for joining us for this week's episode of Cooking Connected. And yes, I am going to remind you about our survey again. I haven't forgotten. Hope you didn't. So please, if you have a moment, just take a time to do our survey for us. You know, this helps us continue to do this work and improve as we go. I have our program code here for us. And let me make sure that's in view. There you go. This week's program code for Cooking Connected Homemade Mac and Cheese. That's going to be E0999806. And again, that's our program code for this week's episode of Cooking Connected. We just want to thank you guys for joining us, for sharing with us, for all the questions and comments. And then also we want to thank our chef today for doing the demonstration for us. Thank you, Jordan.
Absolutely, anytime.
And then with that, we're just going to let you guys go. Have a wonderful Thursday, and we'll see you next week. We've already got our recipe picked out for next week. We're going to be doing the sweet potato chili lime chicken skillet. So check us out for that next week, Thursday at 2 p.m. for that recipe. And we're going to be working through that, and it's going to be a lot of fun. All right, everybody. See you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.